And so the music took a back seat. And plus, I was so and am so passionate about this work. I love, I have that therapeutic love for my clients. I love looking at my schedule and seeing who I'm going to see. I
Mhm.
love the classes that I'm taking or that I'm assisting in. I feel so on purpose with all of that. So music went to the side, and that was a huge part of my life. So there was or is a missing piece of this creative expression. And really, I just started playing again recently over the last couple years.
Welcome to the Transforming Trauma podcast. Transforming Trauma is presented by the Complex Trauma Training Center. I'm your host, Emily Ruth, and I'm so glad you've joined us today. And now for our interview. Tracy Rae Clark is a therapist, coach, consultant, and educator devoted to aliveness, authenticity, and connection. She works primarily with therapists, spiritual and business leaders, and depth-oriented seekers, supporting them in reconnecting with their most authentic selves. Deeply committed to her own inner work, Tracy values ongoing mentorship and growth as foundational to her practice. Immersed in NARM since 2018, Tracy assists in the Master Therapist training and is completing Dr. Heller's Postmaster Fellowship. With a diverse background spanning a maximum security women's prison, trauma treatment, international education, government, and corporate leadership. And as a returning singer-songwriter, Tracy integrates somatic, emotional, relational, and spiritual healing to create transformative spaces for growth and connection. Please enjoy my conversation with Tracy Rae Clark. Okay, I am joined today with Tracy Clark. Welcome to Transforming Trauma.
Thank you, Emily. I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to have you. And I'd love to ask you what you'd want our listeners to come away with from our time together today.
I want to support people to know the beauty of their souls, the beauty of their journey. As I prepared for this, I really saw my journey and how it led me to where I am right now. And so just encouraging other people to see the beauty of their own journey and how all these elements play a role in where we are now. And the movement toward aliveness, that quote from Larry's, is that okay if I read a
Please
quote?
read.
Yeah. The spontaneous movement in all of us is toward health, vitality, aliveness. And then a little later on in the quote, he says, just as a plant spontaneously moves toward sunlight, there is in each of us an impulse moving toward connection and healing. This organismic impulse is the fuel of the NARM approach. And as I looked back on my story, I could just see so much of that movement toward the light and that spontaneous movement toward health and vitality and aliveness. So I'm here to remember that for myself and anchor in that for myself and then encourage that for other people.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I love it. What a great place to start us off. So for folks who may not be familiar with you or know you or your work, can you share a little bit about where in the world you are and about the work you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I live in central Pennsylvania, and then I travel a lot to trainings and to see friends and beloveds and beautiful places that I love. My work, it's a mix of therapy, coaching, consultation, and teaching. And I work primarily with therapists and therapist family
Mhm.
members, it seems.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm finding my mind is already wanting to go in certain directions, but I'm curious to hear a little bit about your backstory and how you came to this work.
I think some of it started when I was 4, when I wanted to be a tree.
Say more.
I appreciated just the beingness and the simplicity of a tree. And so I think that there was a draw to that aliveness, that movement toward health and vitality. And then the next really impactful thing for me is my family went through some really intense developmental relational trauma when I was about 5 that impacted us for years, even up until this day. And so I had very early severe trauma. And I also had a mom that has loved me since before I was conceived, who
Mm.
prayed for me before I was conceived, who loved me every day of my life. And so I had this mix of intense trauma and deep love. And I think those two things coming together gave me like the shattering of trauma and also the holding and the love to want something more for myself and have capacity to seek it. I started in therapy when I was 5. And yeah, had various therapists through high school. And my mom set me up with them. But then I sought out therapy in college, after college, all the way up until now. So therapy has been woven into my life. And when I was in 8th grade, I wanted to be a child psychologist.
Hmm.
I remember we had to put our desired profession into a time capsule. So somewhere buried in Vermont, it says that I want to be a child psychologist.
Hmm.
So I was already wanting to help people in that way.
I think a lot of us, we might ask a child, or we might have been asked as a child, what do you want to be? And a lot of the doingness is already so modeled for us that, I want to go and do this. I want to go and do that. And that you were already with this idea of beingness, being a tree. That really strikes me as
Yeah.
just, it fits with who I know you to be. So that's really sweet.
It was always just kind of funny to me. But now I see the meaning of it, this
Yeah.
direction toward being
Hmm.
and simplicity
Mm.
and being in our nature.
Yeah. So where would you like to take us back to? You said you'd be open to share a little bit about kind of your path.
I also want to weave in here some of my creativity that led to
Mm,
music because that's also
mm,
part of my NARM journey. And so I started writing poetry when I was in 3rd grade.
mm.
Wrote a lot of it when I was in high school and continued that in college. So I'm just marking that as I'm doing this as an
Mhm,
important part of my life. And poetry was my therapy. That was such a way that I learn to connect with myself, make room for some of my complexity, say stuff to paper that I couldn't say to a person at the time. So when I went to college, I majored in psychology and religion at first, and I changed it to business and had ended up having a business career before I came into therapy. And my junior year of college, I went to Egypt for an internship. I went by myself. I had my own apartment in Cairo as a 20-year-old young woman, and I had this what I call a spiritual experience where I connected with being in a very potent way. All of the sudden, I knew that God was I knew that God was everywhere and, in everything. I'd grown up in church, but this was an experience. It was different. I felt not alone in the world. I didn't feel like I was floating as an organism by myself. I felt like, wow, I'm part of life and it's everywhere and it's in me. And words always fell short in that experience, but that was a really formative experience for me because after that, my life became oriented to more of that, more being rather than succeeding and achieving, which had become the focus for a little while.
mhm. Wow. So you had this experience and it kind of oriented you in a different way. What happened next, Tracy?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting that trip to Egypt changed everything for me. I was really ambitious. I was mostly the most likely to succeed in high school. I got voted for that. I was top student. I was student council president. So much achieving in all of this, so much perfection. And I had this experience, and life was just so much more at that point. I also met an Egyptian businessman, and he said, Tracy, Americans work, 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 so they can have, and they never get to live. And I thought, I'm already doing that. And so that inspired me to work so I can live, not live so I can work.
Mhm,
So I went back to college and finished my last year. I got a corporate job knowing and choosing it for its flexibility. After 1 year, I got to work from home. They had flexible hours. And in the time when I wasn't working, I started writing songs and playing concerts. I went on tour all while working for this company. I'd work from coffee shops and do shows at night and not big shows, but meaningful shows. And I was
Mhm.
taking spiritual classes, started studying to become a spiritual coach and practitioner. And so, really oriented my life after that to meaning and depth and healing.
Wow, that's really different than probably most folks would describe their experience in corporate America.
While becoming a spiritual coach and practitioner, while touring as a musician. I moved to Taos in that time, which is a place that's very special to my heart. There, I started learning about embodiment, a lot of somatic work, more emotional work. My most influential therapist was there. We did a 7-year sand tray process, and I got to really be in contact with my unconscious in a lot of ways. We did a lot of dream work, and I felt so loved and held and accepted by this woman. Carol Wells is her name. She's not practicing anymore, but I always loved her name, Carol Wells. It's like she was helping to well me.
I also thought of a well, like a water well. She was
Oh, I
Uh,
love that.
yeah, anyway.
The depth and then the
Uh-huh.
water of the unconscious and yeah,
Mhm.
with drawing out from the
Mhm.
ground, the fresh,
Mhm.
clean water. Yeah.
Mm.
She'd show up in my dreams, like, one time she was helping me look for gems, and I was the one that was finding them, but she was right next to me, like, helping me move in directions to find gems. Yeah.
Wow, I feel really touched by that. Thank you for sharing that. What a beautiful dream and process you had with her.
I knew I wanted to go in the direction of a career that was more aligned with me. I felt this, working to live had been great. I had something that was sustaining me financially, that was regular, and that was great, but I wanted my work to be part of my life's work. So I knew that, and I also became chronically ill. So I ended up I was undiagnosed at first with Lyme disease and didn't know if I was burnt out or what, but I had been really good at math and was having a hard time adding. I would go to a grocery store and it would be difficult for me to remember where my car was, or I'd get so overwhelmed by the lighting and all the choices in the grocery store that my mind would just go blank. And I didn't know what it was, which was scary. Yeah, that was scary. And really, by grace, connected with a functional medicine doctor who said, "We're going to test everything for you." And I worked with him and he helped diagnose and treat me, and I started getting better. But I spent 3 years after leaving IBM just working small jobs at various places to maintain a little bit of income, but mostly I was getting well at the time. And interestingly, this is an important part of my journey too. When I was in college, I got into some drugs. I wanted altered state experiences. And so that was part of my college experience, and that stopped, and then I stopped, I stopped using drugs, but I really wanted the altered state. I had about 3 or 4 periods like this where, 3 months to a year, I would start drinking and I couldn't stop, where it would become a daily habit, it would increase, and so once I got well again from being sick, I wanted to go out and dance and have fun and feel free again because I finally had energy again. And so I was enjoying the state that beer was giving me. And so I would drink, and that happened again where I didn't have the off button. So there was several months, maybe even a year at that point where I was drinking more than was healthy. And I hid it from my therapist. And one day I finally told her I have an alcohol problem. And she knew me so well at that point. She said, "Go to AA, you'll love it." It was that simple. And so I
Hmm.
went to an AA meeting, and within a few days, I had had my last drink. I did the, meeting a day, and Taoist AA I love. The community is just full of great people and characters who are some of my best friends to this day. And so healing happened there. I learned to be more vulnerable in community than I had known how to be before. I started playing music again. I started going to classes for holistic health and healing arts, trying to find where is this life work of mine. Then my therapist, Carol Wells, uh, she said, "Why don't you go get your MSW?" She said, "You'd be great at this." And she said, "You could go to this school." And so I applied, and within a couple months, I was attending my
Mhm.
MSW.
Mm.
The other thing that was really important that I wanted to highlight from grad school is this article that my professor shared with me. In the article, someone described the state of being, the state of grace that I had been in a year and a half ago for 2 months. That I had first touched in Egypt, that I'd touched at these other places. And I was blown away. I thought, wow, therapeutic work can help support someone to get to that place. That's the gem, the most important gem of my life, which is this being place. I thought, okay, I'm on the right track. There was a wink in that of feeling on the
Mhm.
right track.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did graduate. Carol had recommended I take somatic experiencing, so that I took one module of that right before graduation, so that was already feeling more aligned. And then graduation weekend, I wanted to do some inner work with my mom, and my therapist, Carol, said, "Go see Sherry Sharkins in Sedona, Arizona, and she'll do a intensive with you for the weekend." And so my mom and I went out graduation weekend, and I was introduced to NARM by Sherry with my mom.
What a culmination. Yeah, I'm getting tingles just thinking about that.
Me
Mhm.
too. Yeah, there's so much grace. I was so grateful to be able to kind of map everything out and look and reflect to see these commonalities throughout. The grace that's throughout, the state of being that matters that's throughout, the creativity, the being a student, a lifelong student, teaching, community. So there are elements that I just see along the way that are guiding lights for my life. Yeah. I really recommend to anyone listening to map it out yourself and see those elements as they all play out. The importance of
Mhm.
trauma in my life.
Mhm.
I've had some very significant traumas, one in adulthood and one in childhood. Those were necessary to crack something open in me for me to be able to do this work.
I feel so much of that as well, and I love this invitation of going back and looking through our lives and seeing where are these moments or, like, touch points, or what are the things that you're noticing or weaved in. I've often felt that about my own life of, like, all these things kind of were there all along, but then there was, like, this culmination where it was kind of all present, and I saw more, even more clearly of, "Oh, this was all leading me here." It's a beautiful invitation. Thank you for inviting us all to ponder on that.
So yeah, enter NARM. Here's the point where
Mhm.
enter NARM. Carol invited me to see Sherry. I met Sherry, and Sherry said, "In a month and a half, we're going to have a NARM training here in Arizona." I signed up the day before. That's how last minute I was to commit. But it felt like home right away, just given everything in my history. I loved the framework. I didn't come out of grad school feeling like I knew how to be a therapist. I was grateful for what I did get out of it, but I didn't feel equipped to be the kind of therapist I wanted to be. So, having consent and curiosity, agency, disidentification, all of the pillars of NARM, the organizing principles of NARM, the therapist mattering, their state of being really being important, self-inquiry, a curiosity focus, a depth orientation, working in the present moment, all of that, I thought finally I can be learning the kind of work I want to be doing with people. So I felt like my education was really starting here
Mhm.
for being a therapist. I loved the personal and professional growth taking the courses. I don't know about you, but I would see everything through the lens of my own life, the people in my life. And I didn't have clients at the time yet, but once I started getting clients, then through the client's lens. So it's such a transformative model personally as well as professionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some other things I really appreciated and noticed right away were the community and people doing depth work. In my graduate program, we weren't required to get therapy. We would do practice sessions on each other, but they would be role plays. And in our breakout groups, we were bringing our own material. And so the therapist healing was such a focus. I loved that. I loved that we were healing in community. We were watching each other in our vulnerable and brave places. That to me felt beautiful and supportive, and to not be alone in what we were discovering about ourselves. So I was really drawn to that. Yeah, and honoring complexity. I loved how NARM held and holds our core dilemmas, that part of us longs for example, connection, and part of us is terrified of it. And there's no intention of getting rid of any part of ourselves, but more integration.
Yeah, that was not something I think I was aware of even existed. I think a lot of us, even coming to the field, at least I sort of related to it as like, oh, I need to root out these elements of myself, or I need to, get rid of or fix or whatever. And so this is such a different orientation, this integration that you're naming, that folks might be aware of that, but I imagine there are many who that might land in a certain kind of way of, oh wow, that's different. That feels different.
Yeah. It feels so kind to the whole self, so true that we can have paradoxes within us, and that we can have, yeah, our complexity is okay. It's our complexity is natural.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I loved that, honoring complexity. And I really learned in being in the therapist training how to be in my process with people with witnesses. Oh, I can be in process and not know where I'm going, and trust someone to be with me, and trust myself to be vulnerable, instead of figuring out my healing on my own, packaging it. I would do this with songs. I
Mhm.
would go figure out my healing on my own, put it in a song, work it through in the song, and then I'd go share because I wanted to be vulnerable, but it would secondhand vulnerability.
Mhm.
And this
Mhm.
firsthand vulnerability is something that I learned starting in module 1 of the therapist training.
I'm so glad you're naming that, because I can just say for myself, that's a really familiar pattern. And feeling like, at least in childhood, feeling like, oh, I did something wrong or bad or I messed up. I've got to go away in my cave sort of on my own and fix it. And then I can come back and I'll be fixed, and then I'm presentable, or then I'm able to like be in connection with other people if I'm already fixed, sort of thing. So that's a pattern that I just appreciate you kind of naming. There's such a different way of the process of allowing yourself or allowing ourselves to be witnessed while we're in process. Is so beautiful and tender.
I had a similar strategy of wanting to fix myself so I could be together with people, perfect
Mhm.
myself so I could be.
Mhm.
Yep. And how alone that is, and how
Yeah.
inhumane that is. It's or unhuman
Mhm.
because we're always learning and growing. I'm always learning and growing.
Mhm.
Thank goodness there's lots of stuff I don't know in myself, in my capacities, in the world, because that means there's always more depth available.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, to believe that I have to figure that out on my own is it's sad to me now. Active coaching's like that too. I don't not everyone that's listening might know what active coaching is, but one of the trainers or one of the training assistants will be supporting the person in the therapist role to be with a client in the client role. And it's like tandem uh, therapy
Mhm.
with what you're learning at the time. The therapist training has more skills, and the master training, it's more about who we are in that and the intersubjective space. And active coaching is one of my favorite things in life. I still receive active coaching 3 times a month in a small group where I'm a client or the therapist with a faculty member. And to feel held and supported in something that I wanna learn for myself in that way, to get to be messy or not know or make mistakes or have a redo, to have eyes on things that I might not see, that historically I would be terrified to have someone see mistakes in me. Now I'm grateful for it. Part of it is the field of love that it's held in. I know that it's on my behalf, and I've come to trust that. And then in the client role in active coaching, it's so nice to know my therapist has support.
Mhm.
So those multiple levels of support.
And you're naming something really important, I think, at least it's been in my process of the culture of the community is such that there is enough, can I say this? There's enough safety, built in that we can do that, that we can, at least I've felt like, okay, this is a space that it will still feel likely, it will still feel very tender, or even I might feel scared about it, or I might feel some fear around it, really being seen in this such a vulnerable way. But there's enough of that safety, like the structure is there. The structure is there, and there's guidelines, and there's so we know kind of what the rules are that we're playing by, but that creates this container that I feel able to be witnessed in a kind of way that I don't know really that anywhere else in my life prior to NARM I had ever experienced that. So I just want to like highlight that for me personally, that has been so vital to my experience. So
Same, that's why it's one of my favorite
Mhm.
things in life, and that's not a overstatement.
Okay. And Tracy, I'm so grateful for even more so as I've been more in the community and gotten to know you. I'm just so grateful that you're showing up and as yourself and how I've been touched by that. I know I've told you before, well, this feels like a little bit of a full circle moment because you were one of my very first connection points in NARM. I went to an intro with Brad here in Scottsdale, and you were there. And I was thinking about doing the training, but it was in 2 weeks, and I had a newborn. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Where was the money going to come from? And you were just so present with me out in the parking lot. And I didn't feel any pressure from you, but there was the invitation. And I thought, wow, she's like really willing to just be with me in the wondering of how could I make this work. And I want to name that you were one of the very first people that sort of invited me into the community. And I've been so grateful and looking forward to this conversation because of how you've touched my world and my life. And yeah, so grateful that you've been supported so that you could show up in this way because I've been touched by you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, and, I remember that moment too in the parking lot, and before, I remember watching your demo, and so I
Mhm.
already felt close to you. That's what's so cool
Mm.
about doing work together. I already felt
Mhm.
close to you from witnessing your demo, and then we met in the parking lot, and I felt connected and a kindredness,
Yeah.
and I thought, "Wow, you would love NARM,
You
and
were
NARM
right.
would love you."
Oh, I love that.
ever since I did my first NARM training, I've been really involved as a training assistant, helping lead small groups, and I've been a perpetual student. I've been in the postmaster class for I'm on my 6th year of the postmaster
Oh, wow.
class. I took the space classes last year. I'm a student in the mentorship, receiving the active coaching. I bring my videos where clients give consent for me to share my videos with one of the trainers. I do that 3 times a month to get insight on what's coming up in me or skills that I can develop. It's skills or presence that I can work with as I show these videos. It's a very intimate thing, something I'd be terrified of in the past again, but I trust the love that's there. And now I'm a master TA. That's kind of where I have been for the last few years. I go out in person for the master training. I make the trip from Pennsylvania to California
Mhm.
every module, and I love it. I just started doing some of the audio visual there, so that's fun to support. Some of that corporate skill and the music skill come in to help me have an eye and an ear for quality,
Mhm.
sound quality and production quality, and so that's even a good fit.
Yeah, that's so fun to see all the sort of at least when I look back at my life, I'm like, there's such an eclectic array of it seems random maybe from the outside, but when you're inside of it, you're like, oh no, I totally see how this audio visual skills that I have or the sort of things that I built up in corporate, like that's really supporting me in this moment. That's so fun to hear how that's happening for you.
Yeah, it's more
Yeah.
of the puzzle is coming
Yeah.
together,
Yeah, I
or the
love that.
tapestry, and I
Mhm.
imagine, 46 years from now, if I get to be 92, even more,
I love
even
it.
more will be coming together. Yeah. And there's one last theme I wanna touch on is where music is in all of this. So, I've been really involved playing music at various points before grad school, and then in grad school, I knew I didn't want my career to be from my art. But in grad school, I really focused on that and put the music aside, and mostly. And then when I went to remodel that house and started studying NARM, I just was picking up the guitar less. I was writing fewer songs, really stopped writing songs actually. And years went by without writing a song. And what I discovered about that is my songs used to come from my need to process something. And now with I spend 9 hours with mentors a month. I have my own multiple kinds of therapy that I get every week, and I love that. I just wanna take a moment. I have set my life up to have so much support, and that feels like gold to me. Yeah, it feels good just to take a moment to acknowledge that. And a side effect of it is where I would once go to a journal, I would then go to relationship for that. And so the music took a back seat. And plus, I was so and am so passionate about this work. I love, I have that therapeutic love for my clients. I love looking at my schedule and seeing who I'm going to see. I
Mhm.
love the classes that I'm taking or that I'm assisting in. I feel so on purpose with all of that. And so music went to the side, and that was a huge part of my life. So there was or is a missing piece of this creative expression. And really, I just started playing again recently over the last couple years because of Brad.
Mm.
And it started in the therapist training where I was a student. He played one of my songs for the class that was NARM aligned. A lot of my songs have NARM aligned content. So he was always holding that I'm a musician, even when I stopped holding that. He was holding that part of my wholeness. And when I went out for the in-person master class, he said, "If we can get you a guitar, would you be willing to play some songs for us around the fire?" And I said, "Sure." I had no calluses. I had not sung. I didn't know what I would remember or not. So I had to revisit my songs. And I played to my people. I'm putting that in quotes. There's so
Yeah.
much resonance between what I created in my songs and the people there. And so I felt I could see people experiencing something as they listened to the music. I could feel new life reemerging in me. I even had a therapeutic moment where there was a song I'd never played publicly, and I wanted to wait until my grandmother died because I knew it would impact her. And so I'd held on to this song for 20 years. And I asked if I could play it for them, but for me, that this is going to be the first public playing because my grandmother had just passed away. And everyone sat there with me as I sang this truth for the first time with people. And I had 25 or 30 people, tears in their eyes, love in their hearts with me in the shaking of it, me stopping with tears. Is a really memorable moment. Yeah. Yeah. That's the community piece. Yeah. And so now it's a tradition that I play music at the modules one of the nights. And I've been playing a little bit more music in between the modules. I even started working with some coaches and getting mentorship there, which
Mhm.
is great. And have done some open mics. So that's coming back for me. I'm curious about the songwriting coming back. I really love songwriting, but I did write one song.
Are we gonna get to hear it?
Yeah, I'd love to share that
Oh, I love
song.
that.
And the funny part about it is the song is about Brad and Stephanie and Marcia and them supporting me. So it's about where I now go to work
Mhm.
some of these things out. They're part of where I go, but them
Yeah.
holding me in some of my really tender places with so much love. Yeah, it's called Warm Hands. New life is tender and shy. I'm afraid to be defenseless, so I put up more defenses, but I'm alone inside. Then you say you're touched to see the walls I've made, the layers start to soften. I let a little love in, and my body starts to shake. And that tremble is familiar, it shows up when I am seen. In the past I've tried to hide it and hated that in me. But your warm hands hold the ice as it's melting. In your warm eyes, let me know I'll be alright. In your warm voice helps me not know where I'm going. All I know is that I'm growing. All I know is that I'm growing. All I know is that I'm growing toward the light. All I know is that I'm growing toward the light.
Mm. I love that so much, Tracy.
Thank you, Emily.
Mm.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things I wanted to close with here just to wrap it all up and tie it all together. Yeah, that I'm being the tree. I'm in my being and getting to work as a therapist, even if it's not a child therapist, but with developmental trauma. And I'm not living to work. I'm actually in my life's work, which I think is even an upgrade from working to live, is being in my life's work. And the altered states that I was seeking through drugs and alcohol, I'm getting that through being. It's the truer state of being. And this last piece, which I haven't said anything about yet, but I know I wanted to touch on, I live in Pennsylvania and have for the last 3.5 years. I moved here because my parents and then one of my brothers and his family, three of my nieces, live here. And I wanted to be back near family after 20 years of being out west on this whole journey that I've taken you through, kind of finding my unique way in the world, finding resources to help me with a trauma. I wanted to come back into the family system and actually be here bringing what I've learned and what I've become, meeting them from this new capacity in myself, discovering what's possible in our own connection, growing together. We're having conversations and communications and authenticity and my family, and we're all growing together. And taking the trauma that led to the healing back into my family who also went through the trauma, where we can be in vulnerability together, increasing vulnerability together, and learning how to be separate from them as a separate person and connected to them at the same time. And that's been a huge fruit of this work. Without this journey, without NARM, without CTTC, I don't know what it would be like to come back and actually be involved in my family system. And I need to travel a lot to nourish other parts of my soul. And I couldn't be happier living in central Pennsylvania, and I would have never expected that of myself.
That's so touching. And I'm just resonating from my own experience of what that's like to heal these wounds from our young life and to come back into a family and what shifts there in the relationships. It's so beautiful.
There's a tapestry that I'm seeing in my life of all these pieces coming together, of life wanting to move toward light, life in me wanting to move toward light. And it was really uh, a precious journey, even to take the time and map out, why am I here now? What's been part of that process? And yeah, if anyone wants to take me up on that invitation to do that for yourself, yeah, I invite people to try something similar for yourself. And it's just been an honor to share my journey with you.
Mm, such a joy to have you. I love that you started us off with that quote by Larry, Dr. Heller. That quote has been a real, I remember reading those words for the first time and it just landing in a place in me that I'm feeling right now in this moment, having heard you share your experience and things that have led you to the place you're in, and that I'm just hearing a real clarity around why are you here? Not just in this moment, but like what has brought you through everything in your life to engage with life in the way that you have. I'm just so appreciative that you've shared that with us and the way that you model that in our community and show up with such heart. And yeah, it's such a pleasure to know you and get to know you more.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah, it's been great to be with you in this process. Thank you for your care.
Oh, absolutely. So if folks would love to engage more with you and your work, where can folks find you?
I'll give you my emails to put in the show notes.
Great.
And I have an old YouTube. I'll put it in there, even though I do feel shyness around it. It's old music and mostly all most of it's pre-NARM journey, but I'm okay with putting that out there. I hope that it will inspire me to put some more current videos and music out there. But if it could be nourishing for people to connect to some of the songs there, then I'd love for it to be used for that.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Tracy Rae Clark. Just such a joy to be connected to you, and I'm so glad folks are, if they haven't met you yet, that they met you here in this moment, that they got to know you a little bit, and yeah, just so appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode. To find more information about our guest, check the show notes or visit us at complextraumatrainingcenter.com/transforming trauma. If today's conversation resonated, our Spring 2027 NARM therapist training is designed to help you expand what's possible in your trauma work. This live online program offers a structured, clinically grounded way to build more precision, confidence, and effectiveness in treating complex trauma and adverse childhood experiences. If you're ready to strengthen your clinical impact and work with greater depth, we invite you to join us to get trained in the neuroaffective relational model. Enrollment is now opened and space is limited. Visit complextraumatrainingcenter.com to learn more and apply.